Hey comic book friends, I'm Travis. It's time for an edition of No Capes, where I talk about comic books that don't have to do with superheroes. Been a while. Let's talk some books. These are books for the week of August 14th, 2015. Let's jump right in no particular order. Start out with Low, issue number 10. End of a story arc. Basically, Mom rekindles her faith and hope and the ability to believe in a better outcome, and that come to fruition in some sense or another. Great action sequences through this. Not a lot of hope goes on in this issue, and her rekindling her hope seems somewhat easy in this. Not to take anything from the book, I still think the book is great. I still really enjoyed it. I'm excited to see what comes next. I think comes next is like January or February before this book comes back, giving the creators a time to break, especially the artists, before moving on with the book, because in this issue, another thing that does happen is they get near breaking the surface. And no one has been to the surface of the ocean for over 1,000 years, supposedly. But they're going up there, they're going to find this probe, because this probe is supposed to give them information about where they can go to, where they can travel to, where there is air to breathe, because they are all dying under the ocean. It is in its final gas. Great stuff happens in this. There's some vampires in here that kind of mess with her head, give her visions of what she wants to see as they try drinking her. And that is all really great. There's some, like I said, some dynamic fight scenes and chase scenes in this that as comics to comics, Mr. CDC said on the round table that Rick Remender must be the one that's writing these, because in all of his books there tends to be these incredible chase scenes that just seem really dynamic, and again, clearly he must have something going on with his artists to just manage to create these things that do these great scenes and whatnot. My biggest criticism and awe about it is, since a couple issues ago, Tanaki, the artist, has quit doing the coloring himself, and now Dave McCraig is doing the coloring. Dave McCraig is an incredibly talented colorist. I don't think gets near enough work. I don't know what else he does. He must do something besides just color comics. For a while, his name was kind of all over the place, doing some really edgy books and stuff like that I really enjoyed. But he's doing the colors of the book, and he does a great job of coloring. But the style of the book has changed. It's gone from what it used to be to this book, where now the inking is solid and the colors fill in the spaces. I'm going to take this out of the bag here. Bear with me, just to show you kind of what I'm talking about. Cover is all Ticini, I believe. Doesn't really say on here. It just says artist. So maybe he didn't. But anyway, so here we go. Here's some of the work. The lines are, very straightforward. The inking on it is pretty well straightforward. Color within the lines, kind of a thing. Not that there isn't gradations of coloring and whatnot, but clearly, the tail and stuff, it's all inked in a fashion. It's all straightforward, right? Even this is relatively some straightforward action, right? Okay, so very clear, very sharp, and that's a change in style from what the book used to be. Right here, this is issue number 7. No colorist. It's just Chinini doing the Ticini, right? Anyway, all him doing the colors. So, here is some pages. I don't know if my camera, probably with the light in here, it's probably too dark. But see how the line work is not solid. Color bleeds over. It's almost, I don't know, more of a watercolor look to it, maybe. But it just kind of, I don't know. It has a more, I don't know what I want to call it. It's almost like, one of the ways I want to describe it is by saying that it is, it's like the difference between, like, if you had a diving bell on, because this is all underwater, and it's fogged up a little bit. This has this kind of fogginess to it, where everything kind of blends, and this is crisp. This is crisp, and I miss the fogginess. But like I said, still really enjoying the book. This issue wasn't as heavy as what some of the other issues of Low have been, but still one of my favorite books of the year. Just visually brilliant and a compelling story also. Sex Criminals, issue number 13. A funny issue. Nothing else, just in the fact is that on the front cover, it's credited to Harvey Award-winning humorist Chip Zdarsky and Chums, which is kind of a poke at the Harvey Awards. They nominated Chip Zdarsky for this book, for Sex Criminals, and he said, no, you can't just nominate me, you have to nominate for Matt Fraction too. He is the writer, he helps tell the jokes that are in here that make it funny. They wouldn't put, and he said, if you can't put Matt on it, don't bother putting, get somebody else, drop me off the ballot, put someone else on. They didn't. He won. He refused to accept the award, because they didn't put Matt on it, which kudos for him. But anyway, wonderful issue. This is one of those issues that every couple issues comes along that I just think makes Sex Criminals really smart and actually talking about sex in a relatively mature way. Despite all the ridiculousness that goes on in the letter pages of this book, despite some of the funny stuff that goes on in this, because, sex and sexuality and all that stuff can be very funny. It's fun to laugh about and all that, but it also can be really serious too. And this issue kind of brings asexuality to the forefront. What's it like? Gives us kind of an attempt to look at the inside of what would it be like to be asexual, to not be driven by hormones, to be growing up, preteen, teenager, into adulthood, not having the drive that the majority, I think, of, I don't know, because I have no idea what the percentage is of asexual people out there, but the majority of us, I think, have some level, at some point in our life, have had, hormones and a sex drive in some sense. Whatever your gender or gender fluid is, you've had some level of drive, and asexual doesn't have that. And so at least in the same way that any of us do. So it's really interesting to read this. So what would that experience be like? What would high school be like? What would the peer pressure of this is what normal people are like would be like, and that's explored in here, and I think it's really done really, really well. Really enjoyed it. There are some funny moments in it for sure, but I think that I don't know. I know of no other book that explores asexuality. In humans anyway. Certainly there are books out there where there are asexual aliens, robots, things like that, but that's irrelevant to what this is doing or telling. So yay for them, because they kind of are championing this whole, what are these experiences like, to put yet another one in that's clearly a minority. But they're people too, and people experience, and so really cool. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it for that. Rebels, this is issue number 7, a standalone issue. Brilliant standalone story about the women who tagged along during the Revolutionary War, followed their soldiers in battle, sometimes battled alongside those soldiers, and then it beautifully dovetails into modern times, modern America, and about how women, even though there's no modern in this at all, but it's relevant, do not get compensated fairly, do not get compensated the same way that men do for the same work that's there and whatnot. Just wonderfully, wonderfully done. Guest artist on this, Matthew Woodson, does an excellent job. Great stuff. For anybody who didn't watch my What the Feud video, this is going to issue 10, and then after issue 10, it will take a break, and then they are more than likely going to pick it up again sometime late 2016, which is a typical business model for Dark Horse to do these kind of, shorter mini-series kind of things, and then, do more down the road when all the creators are together and have time and whatever to continue to create the stuff. So I really do. Really looking forward to reading what's next. I've been enjoying this in single issue. And I'm sure, unless something disastrous happens, I will be looking forward to it when it comes back in late 2016 also. But still, there's 3 more issues, 2 more stories, I believe. So we got 1 more one-shot, and then I think a 2-issue story having to do with some Native Americans and some stuff like that. So looking forward to that. Great stuff. If you've read Northlanders, it's along the same vein as Northlanders was, except we're in colonial America, as opposed to the time of the Vikings. So, great storytelling. Another book with brilliant storytelling, or maybe it's just the fact that this is Phonogram, the Material Girl, issue number 3, and it's set in my era of listening heavily to music and videos, and all that stuff was just all coming to a head all at once. And so there's lots of visual playing in this that I really enjoy. Where I'm talking myself hoarse tonight. Where they bounce in and out of Madonna videos, they bounce in and out of the Aha video Take On Me. The villains from the Aha video Take On Me are chasing one of the characters, through the video realm in this. Yeah, there's just a lot of visually great stuff in here. Some smart 2-page spreads. McKelvey does a great job visually of creating these 2-page spreads. He does a lot of the books that he's given the time to really create and do something interesting with. Let's see if I can find it. Here's this scrapbook, and you'd think, well, is that a 2-page spread? It most certainly is a 2-page spread. In the fact, you're opening it up and you're looking at the same book that the characters would be looking at. And it works well on so many different levels in following our little character here as she's climbing through the videos. If you follow where she's at, it actually leads your eye all the way through the page. All the way through the page. And here it's a 2-page spread because part of her is on one page and part of her is on another page as she jumps across. And you just follow her along, and that'll get you where you need to go. Plus the text boxes on it also visually cue you where to go. Just different, interesting, and just really, really enjoy it. Really enjoy the artwork as these two halves, these personalities, battle for supremacy of the body and who's going to be in control of what's going on, all stemming from our main character making the choice back in the 80s, I want to say. I can't remember now, and I'm drawing a blank on the time. Making the choice to eliminate half of her personality so the rest of her could be awesome. And now that other half of that personality wants their life back, wants to do their own thing. They even at one point travel back to the 13-year-old version of themselves when they were still one person, and both sides try to argue the point that they're the half that should stay. Make sure when you strike this deal that you do these different things and whatnot in this coven of magic and stuff. And I'm just excited to see where it goes. Just cool stuff. Speaking of cool stuff and very stunning visually. This is The Wicked and Divine. This is issue number 15. Art is by the guest artist Stephanie Hans, who just does amazing artwork all the time, whatever she does. I talk heavily about how she's currently doing the main art in Angela's Witch Hunter 1602, which is just incredibly gorgeous works of art, and here it continues. She just does this amazing, her colors are so vivid and vibrant, and the painting, the mixing of the way that stuff is and stuff is just really, really great. Just some gorgeous pieces of artwork in there. You're doing this wrong. As it kind of tells us the backhistory of, in this issue, of one of the gods, and kind of get some what she was. You kind of get to see her go through some of the people who have died recently in this issue, and just interesting to kind of get more of a background on these characters, kind of what their makeup was like, who they were before godhood took them on, and what their personal take versus the entire story's take is on these people who have recently who have died or murdered or whatever it is that's happened to them. Figuring that all out has been really interesting. I mean, here's the one thing: I've been enjoying these issues. They're one shots, while the artist Jamie McKelvey is busy doing the Phonogram book that I just showed you. They have these guest artists, which has been really cool. But I kind of was under the impression that when they're going to go tell these stories, that they're going to tell us backstories from prior incarnations of these gods. So like maybe we're going to get to see this group of people in the 1920s, or this group of people in the 1800s, or whenever else that was that they were around. Clearly that's not the case. I don't know where I got the impression that that's what they're going to do. But perfectly fine with this. We've got a couple more issues coming up. I think the next issue is by the artist who does Shudder, which will be interesting. And then the issue after that is going to have Brandon Graham, who does artwork on things like Multiple Warhead. He's in charge of the anthology book Island. He also kind of is dabbling in 8 House also. It'll be really interesting to see his take, because he has a very much more of a cartoon style of art style. So I'll be curious to see how he interprets these characters and which god it is that he gets to ride shotgun along and tell us the story of. Will be pretty interesting. But really, really enjoying this. Hard book to talk about unless you are reading it. Would love to get together with a group of people who actually are reading this book and discuss it at length for the length of the book, as how many books there are and whatnot. So that would be cool. I would love to get in on a chat, just what all is going on in this, what works, what doesn't work, all the kinds of things you would talk about with a book and whatnot. Where we think it's going and those sorts of things. Will be a cool chat, I think. What's next? One of the first of the Vertigo books. Vertigo's putting out 12 new books, one each week through October, November, and December. This is the Twilight Children. This is issue 1 of 4. Gilbert Hannon has written, Darwin Cook doing the art with the masterful Dave Stewart on colors. $5 book, but you're getting 40-some pages, I believe, of work in it. An interesting story. This sets up a lot of things. We're on this like tropical island region, I don't know, Caribbean somewhere, kind of a feel to it. It's kind of a secluded kind of a place. They don't seem to care for strangers a whole lot. This orb shows up, this giant glowing ball of energy, and it seems to be something that these people have experienced multiple times. Shows up. It causes, of course, some curiosity. We find out some stuff about some characters. There is an affair going on in this. There is the town drunkard who we find out has lost his family, his children, his wife to a fire. They all are playing a role in this. There's 3 children that basically become the 3 blind mice because they go where they probably shouldn't have gone and touch what they shouldn't have, and are affected by this thing. By this, whatever this alien thing is, this white orb, that energy orb that shows up, and there is a scientist from outside who's come in to kind of study the thing, and we're not 100% sure if he's a scientist. Pretty tame story as a whole for Gilbert Hernandez's book, in my opinion, from what I've read of Gilbert Hernandez. But I'm interested in it. Here's where it goes. 4 issues. Should be a good ride as far as that goes. And Darwin Cook's a great artist, so curious to see what's going to happen in the next 3 issues. East of West, issue number 21. I have been really been digging this series. It has been super exciting this last year. Just all kinds of crazy things have been happening. This issue is a little slower. This issue, I just remind myself that it's Hickman writing it, and we get a couple slow issues, and this is going to, what's going on in here is informing us about some stuff about the First Nation, the Native Americans, and their power base and how they operate, and what their councils are like, and that sort of thing. We get a better sense of how they operate and what they are and who they are in this issue. Not gripping, but interesting, and I just know, because Hickman's writing it, all this information is going to be important to us. We're going to get a couple issues down the road, and all of this stuff will just be making us go, wow, for the full impact of what's going to be going on moving forward. And while we're also being informed by council, there's also this intrigue of these like sleeper agents that are in the Union part of the country, but are actually working for the Maoist, for the Asian part of the country that's taking over the entire West Coast and stuff. So still really enjoying this. I think all this stuff just leads to us to go, I think like a lot of us, I miss seeing the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse and stuff. I miss seeing death. But all this is just adding layers to a much bigger, much cooler thing. Really great book, really great series. Haven't picked it up in singles. I still recommend this thing. Pick it up in trades. By the time you hit the second trade, I can't imagine your mind's not going to be blown. You're not going to be super excited to see what's going on. And it's just pretty darn cool stuff. Strange Fruit, issue number 2 from Boom Studios of 4. Of course, the first issue came out with a lot of controversy around the portrayal of African Americans in this, and 2 white dudes trying to tell a story about racism and that sort of stuff, and got some people pretty bent out of shape about it. I didn't think the first issue was that great of a comic. I like the art as far as being pictures. I think it falls in this issue, falls the same problem for me as like my opinion of Alex Ross and my opinion of like Alex Maleev and Phil Noto, for instance. I love all those artists as far as like getting a cover from them, that sort of thing. But I think that their interior artwork feels static to me. Things don't feel like they're moving at all. Everything feels very, very stilted, very frozen in place, whereas to me, lots of other comics, I read them, they feel fluid. Even though clearly I'm looking at a still picture, I can feel the movement of whatever's happening in there. This, I don't. This is like lots of little small, lifeless Norman Rockwell pictures pasted in here about the South and Mississippi and whatnot. Okay story. I'm still not that gripped here. Feels like a Superman retelling in a sense. What if Superman popped down and had dark skin and came down as an adult, and in the 1920s, during the Jim Crow era, racism in the United States, and how would that work? It's kind of what I'm getting out of it so far. I don't know. 2 more issues. I don't see what it's going to tell me that would be all that special. So, almost wishing I hadn't picked it up. It's not awful, but I just don't see what it's going to do that's going to impress me in 2 issues. But I guess I'll be impressed if it does do something, right? Next up is Abe Sapien, issue number 27. Guest artist on this of Elsa Glusov, who, I guess was a fangirl who showed enough work and stuff that they were excited to work with her, so they used her on this fill-in issue. Of course, the cover is a Mike Mignola art, so kind of hard to go wrong there. But this is like a little piece of a story of who Abe Sapien was before he was Abe Sapien, back when he was this explorer. It wasn't really that interesting, though. It wasn't that compelling. It really, really felt like a filler issue, which is unfortunate. I've been enjoying Abe Sapien and wherever it's traveled us to, but this didn't feel like it informed us really in any way. I didn't think the art was all that great. It was pretty basic, and it's kind of unfortunate. I'm looking forward to the next issue, because the next issue we get back into Abe Sapien and where his travels are taking him, and what he is going to actually learn about himself next. So looking forward to that. And then finally is Roche Limit, Clandestine, number 5. This is the end of the second book of the Roche Limit. At some point, my understanding, there's supposed to be a third one. I didn't really care much for the second one. The first book, the first chapter, loved the artwork in it, loved the covers, loved the kind of philosophical waxing that goes on in every issue at the beginning of it. Really gave some deep thoughts as why you were reading this kind of intriguing mystery that we never really know the end of, kind of a thing. I mean, it got picked up for potential television or movie. I can't imagine this is getting picked up for any of those things. I don't know. I mean, I'm okay with the way this ended and stuff. It left some very open-ending stuff, so I'm curious to see what goes next. I'm hoping they find a different artist. I didn't care for the artwork through this thing. To me, it was kind of muddy and messy in a sense that I just didn't care for it a whole lot. Maybe it's the dark colors. Normally, I'm a fan of dark colors and purples and pinks and whatnot, but it just, as a whole, it didn't work a whole lot for me in it. And you know, interesting. I mean, I kind of liked how some aspects of it worked out in the story. No way for me to really talk about it a whole lot here, but I don't know. It didn't really, wasn't not compelling or that interesting. I might be the only person I talked to here in the YouTube world that continued to pick this up. I think a lot of people started to pick up after reading the first one, started to pick this one up and then dropped it. If you're one of those people and you're curious about it, if you didn't like the first issue of this, you aren't going to like it up through the final issue of it. I mean, other than it's an okay ending. So take that for what it's worth. I wouldn't be inclined to pick it up. Maybe it would be better all in one trade kind of a thing. I don't know. But I probably will pick up if a third book comes out. I will probably pick it up too, just so I have all 3 books to see, you know, what kind of storytelling goes on here. Maybe there'll be something magical in that third set of story that ties us together in some way that I think is really cool. You know, or like I said, for me at least, I hope they move back to the artist that was on the first set of book, or somebody different that's a different art style than this, because I didn't really enjoy it that much. Anyway, to not ramble on, that is it. Thanks for watching. Happy to be back doing these. I mean, I don't know, are people interested in continuing to watch these things or not? I know for some of you, some of this may feel like a repeat of me having talked about them on the roundtable, but I kind of like to talk about them more, kind of hoping some of my family members get caught up so I can have further conversations with somebody else about them. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how I feel too. Sometimes these are a struggle to do these when I feel like I've thoroughly talked about them on the roundtable, and then come here and talk about them sometimes is odd. Anyway, have a great one, everybody, and I'll see you down the road.